Hey, everybody, it's Nicole Bonner with Thrive Chiropractic Consulting, and I'm here with Dr. Patti Giuliano. Welcome, Patti. It's so good to see you this week.
Hi, Nicole. Happy to
And we're
be
ready to get
here.
real again this week with living from the inside out. That's going to be our topic, right?
Absolutely. It's a
Love
good
it.
topic.
It's a great topic. I have I've always said that being a chiropractor is not like any other profession because this is not just a job for us. It's not a career, but it's our identity. It's who we are. It's how we live our lifestyle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
as
today we're going to dive into that and we're going to talk a lot about how we live our lifestyle as chiropractors and how we've raised our family in that lifestyle.
sounds great. And part of our family is our chiropractic, our students. That's a main part of our chiropractic family because, if we could find a way to instill in them what we know now, and I know it was a process, it took us all a process to really take those words, living from the inside out, or trusting that there is a wisdom and genius inside of us. And maybe that is, maybe that's the simplicity of it. Jeannie Ohm kind of condensed it down to say that life is intelligent, and for us to like, how do we take that and actually live it, like live those words? We can say them, but what does it look like? So, I can give some examples, but does anything come to mind for you?
Well, and I feel like this theme has been coming up a lot for you and I, but when you say we can say it, and I feel like we say things a lot in chiropractic, and a lot of times it's up here, it's like knowledge that's in our head.
Right.
And it's really, I think the key is figuring out or learning how to take the knowledge that we know, like we know that the body heals itself, but being able to bring it from knowledge into feeling.
Yeah,
Because, I don't know if you had this experience, but I did it raising a family. It's not easy living differently from the rest of the world. And now I think it's a lot easier than it was when you and I were raising families,
I
especially
agree.
with a lot of the changes that Kennedy is making in healthcare and the exposure of childhood vaccines. But when my kids were growing up, people thought I was whacked out of my mind because I didn't get my kids vaccinated.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so, another thing that caught my attention that you just said was trust. Like trusting, we can say in our heads that we trust the body to heal itself. And I remember one when you told me you wanted to discuss this topic today, I had an incident come to mind. One time when Lucas was little, Lucas has always been my daredevil. One time when Lucas was little, he was like walking along. I like in your master bedroom, you have that bathtub, and then there's a like a tile wall that goes around the bathtub. He was walking on top of that tile wall, and he was holding a tinker toy.
Uh-huh.
And sure enough, I should have never let him walk on the wall, like to begin with. But long story short, he was up there. And long story short, he slipped. And when he slipped, he fell off the wall, fell onto the tile, and the tinker toy went
Oh,
punctured him right in the chin.
oh,
Right. So we took him to the we took him to the emergency room to get him stitched up. And of course, the first thing that the emergency room doctor said was, does he have his tetanus shot? Is he up to date on his tetanus shots? And so, we let them know like our children have not been vaccinated and they're not getting vaccinated, and we don't have any intention of getting him a tetanus shot. We don't feel like that is warranted.
uh-huh.
And then I remember he had to go back maybe a week later to the pediatrician so the pediatrician could take the stitches out. And the pediatrician once again said to Joe, we need to give him a tetanus shot. So Joe said, well, we're not doing that. So the pediatrician kind of rolled his eyes and was like, and I wasn't there. He probably wouldn't have done it if I was there, but rolled his eyes and said to Joe, well, if he gets tetanus, he goes, you could say goodbye to your son just like that. And he did this with his hands.
Oh my God.
So you talk about like, fear mongering,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so Joe was not a chiropractor by trade, but he was a chiropractor at heart. And he just said, no, thank you, but no, thank you. You can keep your drugs. And he took Lucas home. And then he called me on the way home and said, do you believe this doctor said this to us? And in a way, it's like that, when it's your own body, it's pretty easy to live by these convictions. But it's when it's your kid and somebody tells you that if you don't do this, your kid may die. Like that takes a lot of conviction and it takes a lot of trust. Like you have to take that information from your head down into your heart because having it in your head is just not enough conviction to live the lifestyle, especially when you have, other professionals telling you that you're running the risk of losing a child, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's kind of break that down though, because even that we can go deeper into that, like to take it, you're saying take it from your head. So let's actually analyze that with our heads. So the reason we don't do those things, there are certain things like in chiropractic, we say chiropractors don't do this, but that makes it sound like dogma. So
Right.
let's bring it into first the philosophy, the 33 principles. There's a universal intelligence in all things. And then
Mhm.
there is the innate intelligence within our body that if we have that, we take that assumption, okay, because we've witnessed it, right? We've witnessed, people have witnessed that they can live their life without introducing outside things into their body. Well, actually, we introduce outside things into our body all the time. We eat, we get
Mhm.
adjusted, and
Mhm.
but there are certain things that are poisons or chemicals, and we recognize that the body may not recognize those things as a
Mhm.
positive thing, and in that the body is going to have a, an equal and opposite reaction to those things. So
Mhm.
as chiropractors, we've kind of kind of drawn a line, and I would say not all chiropractors do. I would say people who trust their body and trust the wisdom and genius of their body and live a lifestyle where they reduce the amount of stressors and that come into the body, and that includes
Mhm.
ingesting poisons or things that are less than optimum, as well as injecting directly into our bloodstream. And we
Mhm.
do know from our training and understanding physiology and chemistry that if you put something directly into the bloodstream, it bypasses all of the natural body's barriers
Mhm.
to it responding to something, right? So now
Right.
it's like it's going directly in the bloodstream. You got to
Right.
hope to God that your system is able to handle that. Okay. So whether
Right.
that is a tetanus shot or any of those things. Okay.
Right.
So I think that as chiropractors, we've studied the physiology, we've studied the chemistry, and we look at it very differently than medical doctors look at it. We don't look
Mhm.
at it as, oh, this is a good thing we're adding to the body. No, it is not a good, it can cause harm.
Right.
An adjustment, food, those are things that we are introducing into someone's body, yet we are trained to, and we know that you cannot hurt someone if you make an adjustment and you know the amount of force to put in, and even if you put too much force in, what is the worst that's going to happen? Someone is not going to die.
Right.
Someone may experience muscle pain, muscle achiness. We've
Mhm.
heard about people having vascular situations when we know that you cannot physically cause that to happen to a person. Something has to already be there, and whatever position or whatever they were in as the adjustment may have been the same position if they were sitting in their car and they turned to look behind them. And that was the moment when maybe that force encouraged it, but it'll happen. So we train to know how much force, what's the least amount we need to give in order for that to happen. The other thing in your experience, see, I guess I wouldn't call myself a coward in this, but I would call myself that I took the easy route. Like if a doctor asked me, you know, have you had your tetanus shot? I'd say, yeah, we're all set. I
Mhm.
lie rather than have a situation, and
Right.
I tell my patients, do not send your child to school and have the nurse say to you, did your child have their vaccines, and start a fight with her and say, we don't vaccinate. Just say,
Mhm.
here's all the paperwork that you need. Everything's in there. And let them
Mhm.
look through the paperwork. If then they question it, then you
Yeah.
can say, oh, you're questioning? Oh, that's what we do in our family. We cannot we can't get shots. We're allergic to I make up shit.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. It's none
Don't
of
be
their
sorry.
damn business, and I
Right.
and I don't want to get into a whole fight with them. It's just not worth my time and my energy. So,
Yeah.
that's kind of how I handle it, and how I encourage my patients to handle it, because they do not have the knowledge to be able to have a conversation with
Mhm.
their doctor or the school nurse. So I just say to them, tell them, yeah, we're all set. Yeah, here's all the paperwork,
Yeah. That's really interesting because there's so many different ways to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And people in practice ask me this often, about, they want to get off their medications, they want to reduce the number of medications that they're taking, and they say, like, how do I go about doing that? And I tell them, like, so for me and for my family, I was straight up forward, like, we just don't do this. Like, we just don't live our life like this, right?
Yep.
But for when my patients ask me, how do I do this? How do I handle this? I let them know that this is a conversation that you need to have with your medical doctor, because your medical doctor is the person who is responsible for regulating those medications, not you and not me. But what I recommend is that, let's say they want to take, they start getting their adjustments, or they want to do a supplement regimen or something like that, and they notice, like, their blood pressure is coming down, or they don't need as much blood pressure medication or diabetic medication or asthma medication or something like that.
Right.
I tell them the conversation to have with their doctor, say, doctor, so and so, I've started to make these lifestyle changes. And what I've noted, I've been tracking my blood pressure. And what I've noticed is, over the last 90 days or over the last 120 days, according to my tracking, my blood pressure is actually coming down and is now too low. Do you think we should adjust the medication? And
That's beautiful.
that's the conversation I tell the laymen to have with their doctors or their pediatricians. Um,
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Two things you did. You used lifestyle. You didn't say I'm under chiropractic care. You
right.
made some lifestyle changes, and then you had
Mhm.
them ask a question. So when somebody's in authority and you feel like you're in authority too, but you need to
Mhm.
you need to like get some answers, you
Mhm.
always ask a question. What do you think? I learned that with my family, that
Mhm.
in a conversation there can only be one person who's in control, and if you're not that person in control, then you need to ask the person who's in control, what do you think about this? Like, I'll say, Peter, what do you think about if we change some of the pictures in the office, rather than, Peter, I think we should change some pictures in the office, I want to do this and this, and then there's like, what do you mean? But if I say, what do you
Yeah.
think? In a couple of weeks, he's going to say, Patty, what do you think? I'm thinking we should probably change some of the pictures. I hope he doesn't listen to this.
As I say, Patty, if he listens to this, he's gonna know your trick.
Oh, he knows my tricks, I think.
I'm sure he does after all those years of marriage, right?
But isn't
That's
that
awesome.
so when in a conversation that you're having a challenge in, always ask questions. Don't
Mhm.
don't speak about things if you don't understand them. But even if you do, it's always better to ask the other person, well, I'm curious what you're thinking about that, you know?
Yes. That's a great question to ask. I love that, that verbiage. I'm sure you have a really good reason for saying that. Would you mind sharing with me what that is?
Love it.
I love that.
Love it. So
Yeah.
I have a story about that, and it's
Hmm.
related to my kids. So, because we wanted to talk about lifestyle and we wanted to talk about living that inside out kind of lifestyle rather than, we're not going to call it the chiropractic, although it's chiropractic principles, they're principles of life. So, Christopher was 2 years old, and we had just bought our new property with our new home office, and we were walking around with the landscaper, and she said, over here we're gonna put plastic down, and so we're gonna kill the weeds so we can create a nursery here. And
Hmm.
so Christopher toddled along with us, and we got to the house the next morning, because I was like outside, my kids went outside to play, so I
Hmm.
opened the door, and Christopher goes waddling out down to the place where she had put all the plastic, and he's starting to rip up the plastic. And I go running over there. Okay, so my first thought was, which I think most of us would think, this little brat, why is he ripping up this plastic? And rather than us, you know, asking our child, we make this assumption in our head of why they're doing it. But I
Hmm.
caught myself, and I reached down because I know Christopher, he's not like that. And I said,
Right.
Chris, and I said that to him. I said, and I use that a lot with my kids. I said, that's not like you. That's not like you to
Hmm.
say that. That's not like you to do that with patients. That's not
Right.
like you to say that to your body. So I said, Christopher, why are you pulling up the plastic? Mommy,
Mhm.
you told me that we shouldn't kill things. They're trying to kill the weeds. I don't want them to die.
Oh.
I mean, really.
Hmm.
So what did I do? I said, Christopher, you're absolutely right. And I reached down and I said, let's pull up this plastic. And we ripped
Hmm.
up all the plastic. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, oh God, where she's going to put this nursery, we're going to have to put it somewhere else where Christopher doesn't see it. So, so he can, but well, what he reminded me, and he called me out on being
Mhm.
incongruent with the
Mhm.
words that I was teaching them. We don't kill living things. And,
Yeah.
it could be a weed, it could be whatever,
Yeah.
a fly, a mosquito. So I never
Mhm.
killed little things in front of him. If I needed to kill a fly, I would just make sure the kids weren't around.
Yeah, but like what you're sharing, Patty, is so important because it's just a testament to, you know, how strong a person's belief systems are and how people make decisions most of the time unconsciously based on their internal belief systems,
And what we were taught
and
from our parents, our parents' words come out, right?
yeah, yeah. And so like with Christopher, he didn't know anything different. Like that's just what he knew. That's how he knew to be.
Right,
It's
right.
amazing.
Yeah,
So cool.
yeah, well, the same thing. Like my kids would play in the dirt in the garden with me, and they'd come in the house, and I'd find Christopher digging in my house plants. And I remember going, "Oh my God, he doesn't know the difference between outside gardening and inside house plants. It's dirt and it's a plant, and he thinks that he can just dig in it."
Yeah.
Or we'd be driving in the car and he'd be like, Mommy, Mommy, can you go into that car? I want to see what it feels like. They have no concept of certain
Yeah.
things, until they have an experience of something, you know.
Right.
You can
Well, that's
tell
how
them.
yeah, that's how we grow and that's how we become who we're going to become is through our experiences.
Yeah, and I bet your son never walked along that ledge again.
Probably not. I don't know. He might have.
Maybe not with the toy in his hand, but no, I always felt like, I'd let my kids, do things, and not that I would put them in danger, but I'm like, okay, you go down the steps backwards, you go forwards and something not nice is going to happen. Of course, Christopher went forwards and landed at the bottom, and learned,
Mhm.
that,
Yeah. I think that's something that a lot of us chiropractic parents have in common is that we allow our children to learn more through their experiences than we do through like even verbal correction.
right. And
So
what
although
about,
verbal,
go ahead.
I don't want anyone to take me the wrong way. I think although verbal correction is a big part of it, definitely in my experience, them learning through experience has really developed them into who they became as men.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not like
Mhm.
we put them in danger, Nicole. It's like
Right.
we're seeing, okay, that they've got to figure this thing out. And if we do it for them, they're going to learn it sometime later and possibly really have a challenge and hurt themselves. So let them
Yeah.
kind of, I'm here to guide. It's not like we let our kids jump off the roof and then think that that was okay. But let's take
Right.
it into their bodies, that same concept of allowing them to have an experience. I can
Hmm.
remember saying to patients, okay, so you've given your child, antibiotics 5 times already for 5 different ear infections. Are you willing to allow them to have an experience? Because it takes 7 days, 5 to 7 days with or without the antibiotics, as I have experienced with myself and my
Hmm.
children and other patients. Are you willing to allow your kid to have that experience? Because
Hmm.
it's like the body has that experience and it learns. Just like our kids have the experience, they'll fall
Yeah.
down a couple of steps and they learn, right?
Right.
So, but people aren't always willing, and especially in these days, because drugs are much more rampant, parents are not willing to allow their kids, to allow them to see that my body is smart. My body
Hmm.
can get me through this. Or the
Right.
parents themselves just say to them, I know you're in pain. I know you're having
Hmm.
this challenge, but can you just be with your body,
Hmm.
experience what the pain is keeping you from doing because you're probably
Hmm.
not supposed to be doing that. And then,
Hmm.
but if you take a drug, you don't have a perception of what you shouldn't be doing, which is possibly making things worse. You see,
Hmm.
so I think that's how we carry our philosophy into
Hmm.
reality for us, our patients, is to trust. And we're back to what we started with, to trust. There's a wisdom and genius in
Hmm.
there. It's going to give us pain to let us know, oh, you did something, or don't do any more of this, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And and it's giving us information, but people don't listen to it. People
Right.
don't believe in it, but don't believe it's there. But you have to believe it's there if you know how does your physiology work? It's like your brain doesn't
Mhm.
work alone.
Right.
Dead people have brains and spinal cords and all of that in
Hmm.
them, but there is something missing. There is that something that actually
Hmm.
runs our universe in here and the universe out there.
Right.
And if we get our patients to get that concept, and it's how do we do that? Every time they say thank you to you, you say, thank your body. Thank your
Hmm.
body. The wisdom and genius inside your body did this. It's not
Yeah.
chiropractic that healed you. We flip,
Right.
we flip the switches to just
Right.
open up the possibility of all of your systems to be able to be coordinated with each other and do their
Right.
best. You may still have symptoms, but your
Mhm.
body's going to be working better, working towards more survival, you know. And that's
Yeah.
I felt like that was the biggest concept that I could give to people that came into my practice. Not
Right.
like, oh, this the adjustment is going to cure this or that. The adjustment's going to turn on the switches. And then
Right.
you got to take care of this body of yours and see what you're putting in, and that includes the vaccines, the
Hmm.
drugs, all that, you know.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Patty, I'm really curious, because I haven't really experienced this very often when my kids were growing up, but I have had other friends experience this where maybe their family was like ostracized from certain play dates or um certain things because we live a different lifestyle than most people and they just don't understand it.
Right.
Where maybe, for example, I'm just kind of like making this up right now because I can't think of an exact example, but maybe for an example, like if a family did not have their children vaccinated, then another mom said to that mom, oh, well, your kids aren't vaccinated, so you can't, play in this play date. How, this might be a tough question, but how would you handle that? Like, what would you say, or what would you teach another chiropractic mom how to respond to that?
Well, I would say I'm curious, if you're thinking that my child is going to infect your child. Are you worried? Are you worried that something is going to cause harm to your child? And then I would wait for that
Mhm.
answer. And then I'd say,
Right.
well, in actuality, the vaccines are designed to protect that person that they're going into.
Mhm.
Anybody can be a carrier. Anybody,
Right.
your child vaccinated can be a carrier, and they may
Mhm.
not express it because of whatever the vaccine has done in their body to create certain antibodies. But
Mhm.
once my child is already, I would say my child has already had the measles. So
Mhm.
my child is not going to give your child measles, especially if you've well, let me ask you another question. What do you believe the vaccine has done? Do you believe that, and I would prime it, do you believe that the vaccine has allowed your child to be immune to getting the measles? And I wait for
Mhm.
them to say that. And then I would say, I'm curious then, if the vaccine works, why are you worried?
Mhm.
And I would stop there. I'm like, either it
Right.
works or it doesn't work. Is it working for your child? Do you believe,
Right.
is that why you did it? Yes, that's why
Right.
I did it. Then why are you worried?
Yeah. Guys, you should
Anybody.
write that down. That's good stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, they could go into a grocery store with their kids, and there could be unvaccinated kids in the grocery store. You would have to
Yeah.
check, you would have to check every person who comes into contact with your kid. Now, I wouldn't go that far unless
Mhm.
they pushed me, then I would. I've said
Right.
that to some people who have said, oh, I think everybody should have the COVID shot, you know. I don't want my kids going to school with other kids who don't have the COVID shot. And I'm like, well, do you take your kids to the grocery store? Do you take them to the playground? Do you ask every child on the playground if they've had their vaccine? No, you
Mhm.
probably don't. So what's this
Right.
about? What is this about? And then I can get into, okay, let me just check in with you. Are you afraid? Are you afraid that your child is going to contract something and die? Is that your fear? If that's it, I get it. I get it, and I get your fear, and I understand. And I think that it's really important for you, since you're in so much fear, to look at the data.
Mhm.
I've been privy to having this data, which is why I make the decisions that I do. So I'm happy to give you some of that data, or you can just
Mhm.
go online. You can go ask ChatGPT.
Mhm.
I wonder what ChatGPT would say about vaccines. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I might go ask ChatGPT. Would you, if you had a child, would you give your child the MMR vaccine? They've
could
got
be
to
our next, that could be our topic in 2 weeks.
have. Yeah, I'm going to get off this call and I'm going to go check that out.
All right. Well, next in 2 weeks we'll talk about what it says. I love the way that you approach this with asking people questions.
Yeah,
I think it's excellent and I think it's genius. Because it really holds them to a certain level of responsibility as well, for them to take responsibility for what they're saying and what they're claiming, and
amen.
to make them take responsibility for actually thinking through what it is that they're saying. Because most of the stuff that's coming out of their mouth is driven by emotion, is driven by fear,
Yeah,
which has been wired into them from, well, we know who, right?
yeah.
So, um, I love that. I love that line of questioning. I think it's great. I think it's brilliant and it's genius. It's a great way to approach it.
Yeah. I mean, the Socratic method is always, you know, always works best.
Yeah, but and you know what too, Patty? You also validate them. Like,
Yes,
once you
yes,
ask them, like, what are you feeling? And they tell you, well, I'm feeling fear about this or that. And then, as a mom, we can certainly put ourselves into their shoes and
yep,
feel what they're feeling and validate that.
absolutely.
Because what they're feeling is definitely, it's doubt what they're feeling.
Right,
I mean, I think as
right,
parents and mom, we all have these moments of fear and insecurity about, the safety and the health and well-being of our children for sure.
right.
So we're more alike than we think. We're just different
And our
in
methods.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's important not to ever make people wrong, you know, whether it's in a conversation like that or whether it's in our office,
Mhm.
especially on a first visit consultation.
Oh, right.
Oh gosh, that's the cardinal rule. Never
Yeah.
make the patient wrong. They can tell you, oh, I've done this surgery and that surgery and this,
Mhm.
and you keep your composure
Mhm.
and be kind
Yeah.
because this person made decisions for themselves based on the knowledge they had at that moment. And
Mhm.
you're not in their shoes, and it may not be what you would have done, but that's what they did. And now they've come into your sanctuary and make it a
Mhm.
sanctuary.
Yeah.
Hold them through the next steps. Otherwise, you're going to lose them. Then they're
Yeah.
never going to be open to
That's correct.
hearing what your truth is.
Right. Right.
So,
For sure. I was actually just having this conversation with my girlfriend. We've actually been friends since the seventh grade, so we've known each other a long time.
yeah,
I was on the phone with her just yesterday having a conversation, and she's totally transformed her life, and now she thinks a lot like her beliefs are a lot like our beliefs. Her family gets adjusted, she no longer vaccinates. They do all kinds of supplementation and cleansing, and they eat healthy and green. And I said to her, I said, "Do you remember when we were having children, you thought I fell off my rocker because I wasn't going to vaccinate the boys?" And she started laughing. She's like, "Yeah." She's like, "I thought you absolutely lost it."
wow,
And
wow,
I can't believe, she goes, "I can't believe I didn't know this." And I
yeah,
said to her, I said, I just validated her. And I said, "Look, I said, the reason why I know this is because I've just been blessed to be called to a profession where I've learned this stuff decades ago before it came out. Like before you guys, now it's becoming more the way we live, believe it or not, it's becoming way more mainstream today than it ever has been before.
yep. Thank you, Dell
Right.
Bigtree. Let's put a plug in for Dell Bigtree and Aaron
Yeah.
Fury and the whole team there of lawyers
Yeah.
that are protecting our rights to choose,
Yeah.
right to
Yeah.
choose. And that's really
And
what it comes down to
yeah. And
for every parent.
Florida. Yeah. And Patty, you're in Florida right now, right? Are you in
Yeah,
Florida? Yeah.
yeah.
And so Florida did away with all their mandates for childhood vaccines. Like if that doesn't tell you something, what does, right? that just validates that what we've been doing already for decades and decades and decades, um, is is the right thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? I mean, there will be people getting the measles. People are going to start getting
Mhm.
the measles, and
Mhm.
but they'll have lifetime immunity. You know,
Mhm.
you get them, your body learns. It's like the falling down the stairs. It's like falling in the tub. It's
Mhm.
your body learns,
Yep.
and it's yeah, if people would just trust in that. But that's our
Yeah.
job. That's our job, to live that where we started, to live that lifestyle and to
Mhm.
be the example for people and to be
Yep.
curious.
Yep. Awesome. I love it. Well, lady, we are headed around our 30-minute mark. I think we might have even passed it, but our conversations are always so fun.
Yeah, good conversation. Really good, Nicole.
Yeah. All right, you guys. So we're gonna wrap up for this week. We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. And for any of you guys that female chiropractors, and even the dads out there, if any of you are struggling with how to handle this stuff, or how to answer questions, or how to talk to your pediatrician, you could always reach out to myself. You can, I'm sure Patty, anybody can reach out to Patty at any time. You guys can find us on social media, and we've been there. We've done that. We've gone through raising our families, and we're here to help you guys. So if there's any questions at all that we could ever answer for you, or help you walk down that path, please let us know. We're happy to help.
Absolutely. Okay, Nicole. Love
All
you,
right.
honey.
All right. I love you too. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you in two. Mwah.